Thank you for waiting. We would like to begin the last session of this forum. This is a concluding session. Think globally, act locally. For accelerating the transformation toward SDGs, we do have English and Japanese languages available. Please choose the language that you like to listen in. Let me first introduce our panelist. Director of Global Issues Cooperation Division of ICP, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Kawahara Kazutaka. Please introduce yourself. Yes, I'm in charge of sustainability. I'm Director of Global Issues Cooperation Division at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'd like to congratulate on this forum. At this time of COVID-19, we have this hybrid session being flexible to organizing this event. It's wonderful having been able to organize this event. The importance of multi-stakeholder has been discussed, and we would like to respond to this issue as much as possible, representing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you. Let me introduce a second participant. Representative Director of Global Compact Network Japan, we have Mr. Arima Toshio. 21st Century Principal for Financial Action for 21st Century Managing Organization, Fellow Director of Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Holdings. We have Kanai Tsukasa. We also have Co-Representative Director of Japan Civil Society Network on SDGs, Ms. Miwa Atsuko. And Director of UNDP Representation Office Mr. Yamaguchi Kentaro, Director of Kanagawa Prefecture in charge of Vibrant Inochi. And we have Mr. Kondo Tetsuo, Director of UNDP Representation Office in Tokyo. Also, Ms. Moeko Onuki, SDGs SY Co-Representative. Lastly, we have the General Producer of Japan SDGs Action Promotion Council, Kawate Masahiro. And we also have the chair of this council, Professor Norichika Kanie. I'd like to ask Professor Kanie to proceed. Thank you very much. Again, this is the concluding session of this forum. We had Channel 1 and Channel 2 discussions. In order for us to step up SDGs effort, what are some of the challenges that we face? How can we overcome those challenges in promoting SDGs? What can we do to achieve transformation? We have had discussion, and we want to involve multi-stakeholders in this session for further discussion. In order to summarize the discussion that has taken place in Channel 1, I would like to briefly give you the summary. We need to break the silos, which is important in many ways. GSDR itself is breaking silos. We have had assessments. We have had multiple reviews for climate change. We have IPCC report, IPES for biodiversity loss, and other social issues. There have been multiple reviews conducted. But we haven't had a review of the total system, inclusive of those reports. International cooperation, poverty issue, all of these being included in a system. We haven't had the review of that system. So we have multiple assessment. We need to assess those assessments. Of course, the content of solutions is important. Since there are so many different assessment reports, it's impossible to read everything. So what we need is the assessment of assessments. So that is the challenge GSDR is trying to solve. Take that as a symbol of breaking the silos, getting a total picture of a system, consider a system or trade-offs. It's been 7 years since these SDGs set. We have been able to accumulate data and also case studies. We have built knowledge on SDGs. What are the leverage points? What should we change to accelerate a larger change in society? So that's what we have discussed in Channel 1. The essential point of discussion is the need to change our actions. Of course, it is important to extend what we have done in the past, but just by extending the conventional action, it's not enough. What becomes a weapon for us to change is the partnership, building partnership with new counterparts. I think that's something that we need to focus on, especially in the sessions that I have presided. There are several actions that are raised, actions that this forum can take. For example, participating organizations in this forum. There are many organizations. They're all dealing with this economy, but there aren't inter-party dialogue between these organizations. So establishing a dialogue platform, providing a fora for different parties to have discussion. This is something Japan SDG Action Promotion Forum can do. You may think this is not much, but under the pandemic situation, it's very hard to start something new. You can't even have casual chat, but having casual chats is important. You can start small, an easy way, such as having a casual chat. This may lead to planting a seed or spreading the roots underground. When it comes to GSDR, some of you may have heard GSDR report for the very first time today. In the very beginning, in the first session this morning, we had representative of UN Secretariat and my colleague, Dr. Nancy Shako, participated in the initial session. We had discussion on what GSDR is. And I think it has the global significance to it. Last week, we were discussing what should we discuss. As of today, we only have zero draft. It's simply a framework that has been set up for the next report. But once it's open, we know exactly what goes into it. By knowing what's going to be written in the report, you know exactly what are the thoughts behind it. Of course, that's not the final form. It is the starting framework. But based on that framework, they are open to inputs from different people. And this process just began today in this forum. I'd like to invite you to get to see the archive to understand better about GSDR. Compared to IPCC's report, it's much less known. But toward 2023 and 2027, there will be new edition issued. There may be more reports published. Once again, let me emphasize GSDR is an important report to understand the total system. So please do remember this GSDR report. So that is my own summary of the discussion in Channel 1. So that's Channel 1. I have not participated in Channel 2. So I'd like to know what's been discussed in Channel 2. I'd like to invite Mr. Kawate, General Producer of the Council, and Representative of Youth, Ms. Onuki, please.
Well, first of all, I would like to let Onuki-san to report on her part. Thank you very much, Mr. Kawate. This is a discussion that we have discussed in Channel 2. There are two things that I would like to highlight. One is open innovation is so important. Well, open innovation, in other words, each of the local government, each of the stakeholder, there are various initiatives undertaken. But each of the stakeholder, each of the local government, the issue that they confront, and how they tackle this issue, making it this open. And it's important to pursue these efforts in an open environment. And when we think about SDGs, there are synergy and trade-off. But we need to enhance the strength, and then we need to have more positive influence on the synergy effect. And each of the stakeholder and local government, they have some weakness as well. So the weaknesses, they will be able to compensate each other. And the second thing is the connection on the platform, which is also very important. Well, as a youth, I have been able to participate on this forum today, but so youth, it's a region where we live in the future. So it's not a business of others, it's business of ours. So youth do not have a social sort of mutual interest. We are quite critical to adults. So we have the strength of being able to speak freely and be able to think freely. But to the adult, this is the possibility, this is what we would like to do, then the adult will be able to try to help what we want to achieve. So we need to cooperate together and generating case studies, and we would be able to roll that out or maybe develop that in tangible terms in the future. So this is what we have discussed. So Kawate-san, thank you very much. So Onuki-san have talked about the issue of awareness issue in terms of the youth. So synergy and trade-off are the two words. Well, synergy would have a good sort of a chemical influence or chemical reaction. But when you say trade-off, everyone will halt and stop, not knowing how you need to deal with the trade-off. But when we talked about this thing, the other sectors maybe have other areas of strength. And that was what Onuki-san said. So let's say Shiga Prefecture, as a prefecture, they will be able to function as a platform, and they will be able to work as a bond. And for financial institution, finance and community, non-profit making activities, they will be able to link them. So financial institution, when they go out from a certain region, they're not rivals. They will be able to help each other and create a set of network. So when we think about trade-off, from the trade-off, we will be able to pump prime synergy from the trade-off. So when we talk about SDGs, there are several keywords that have been submitted, but to truly understand the keyword and overcoming them, overcoming the issues, and then leading that to transformation, these specific actions are in need, and it's most important. And especially what's being done in local is what the United Nations are expecting. So those are the discussions that we were able to have. And at the same time, the session, in terms of the Kyoto press, have also participated, Mr. Hashida. And because of each of the media have covered the story, there is a special nomination by the Kyoto press. So the journalists looking at the region, covering the community, some of the good practices undertaken in those communities are being fed back to the practice that is deemed to be ideal for SDGs. So the local media's role have also become evident as well. And Hashida-san from Kyoto PR has said that there is one verb which said to take action is, of course, the most important thing, to take action. And the next keyword is to be connected and to think, and also to aspire. So, of course, UNDP of Representative of Japan, Mr. Kondo, also speaking about the relationship. When we say aspire, well, aspire meaning you need to communicate what you're doing, appeal to what you are engaging. So what you're doing, you need to be able to explain to the others. Otherwise, the journalist looking at it from a side really may not understand what the actions are conducted. And we need to have a message, and we need to uphold the message and aspire to the message. So that is leading to the people connection, and that will lead to synergy and trade-off. So the trade-off is really going beyond the border of the verticals and industry. And that will also lead to the synergy effect. So those are the discussions that has been held in Channel 2. So that's really started off with Ms. Onuki's sense of awareness about the problem. It's not that we are not doing anything. We have the material. So SDGs in Japan society, we are now seeing tangible change. But it's really the question about the next phase. Going to the next phase, we need to look at it from the multi-generational perspective, and what's not being connected needs to be connected. So localization of SDGs, those are something that we need to bear in our minds, which is already starting in Japan of people becoming aware about this issue. So Professor Kanye, I hope that this GSDR, this effort conducted in Japan, will be fed up to the compilement of the report. So financial and the local government and the private sector, and also the regional youth in their community. Are they going to live in their community? Are they going to go to the urban area? There are some youth still have not made up their mind. So their hometown. With SDGs, I think the notion of what hometowns mean to them, the youth people, I think will shed light on a different meaning. So that was the feeling I had in the participating in the discussion in the local channel, Channel 2. So there are a lot of keywords that have been submitted. So listening to this summary, I kind of feel as though the very intensive discussion that was held on the other channel and truck. So in terms of taking action and aspire and connect and communicate, in terms of upholding or aspiring, well, in terms of based on the objective, the governance based on the objective, I think it really does reflect by upholding and aspiring, people will be connected. Okay, let's work together for the same upholded aspiration. But okay, we want to do it, but I have this, but I don't have this. You have that, you don't have this. So we can compensate each other and create a partnership. So the governance that's meant to be upholded and aspired, I think, is the starting point of SDGs. And the basic origin would lead back to executing action. So that's the feeling I have had. So people are now starting to understand, I believe. And in the GSDR effort, we need to have specific case studies. Or in the first session, if you recall, Nancy was sensing that the research is tenfold regarding SDGs. The research conducted in recent years have been tenfold increase, was mentioned by Dr. Nancy Shackle. And also Google search from 2012, it was threefold. And the data point, and this insight needs to be included. And those had to be the role of GSDR to put that into a rationale. So Onuki-san, Ms. Onuki, you are now in a very critical moment. You graduated from university, and it's right before getting a job. You have the freedom to say anything, and you have no binding factor at all. So, Ms. Onuki, your issue, what you feel as your issue, besides from what you have reported about the discussion in Channel 2, so this would be a starting point for us. So you need to submit a open issue for us. Okay, Professor Kanye, thank you very much. So the other day, I have been able to graduate from the university. And as a student, this would be my last opportunity, maybe, to speak freely without any binding factors. Well, not as a student. I mean, very limited time to be able to speak freely as a student, but you also need to be able to speak freely after participating into the society as well, because you're Z generation, right? Yes. Thank you very much. I would like to represent Z generation. So in terms of some of the issues for transformation from the eyes of the youth, there are two things. One is in terms of the issue related to corporate activities. So it was, as Professor Kanye mentioned, I was at his seminar workshop, and this is the area that I have been conducting research on for a long time.
I see challenges in terms of companies' operation. If you look at companies that participate in SDGs efforts, many are involved with environmental protection or philanthropy, and these tend to have nothing to do with their core business. When it comes to ESG investment and demand from society, it looks to me that they carry out SDGs effort because they have to. Rather than being forced, they take this as an opportunity to build a win-win relationship and positively contribute to society. Seen from a student's point of view, we have examined SDGs effort by companies. We believe that we, the Z generation, should be able to communicate to society what companies should do and should disclose. Many companies disclose the CO2 emission reduction. Rather than having that superficial disclosure, how much this SDG has been deeply understood within the company, how they have built sustainability throughout the supply chain, and how they are involving other stakeholders, gender diversity in decision making, and also the age distribution. All of these are quite important issues for the youth. I think these need to be included in their information disclosure. So that's the first point. Let's take that first point at a time. The company's challenges she raised. Yes, these challenges were listed. In this forum, in order for us to transform ourselves, we would like to understand what are the leverage points to these challenges. How can we identify them? Throughout this forum, this has been a research question for us. A question this forum raises. So leverage points, stakeholders partnership, including these perspectives, if we are to examine the company's challenges, what can we do to deepen our understanding? If I look at the panel right next to me, Mr. Kanai is the right person to talk about ESG investment. I think he is the best person to answer this question. Next to him, we have Mr. Arima from Global Compact Network Japan. He has been supporting companies' activities. So I'd like to first invite them to respond. In this session, this is how we want to proceed. But if you want to intervene and want to contribute, please raise your hand. Even in the middle of discussion. For example, I asked Mr. Kanai, Mr. Arima to make comments, but if you raise your hand, you will have an opportunity to speak up. So, Mr. Kanai, please. Thank you. I'm Kanai from the Financial Action for the 21st Century. I'd like to present the perspective of an investor. there has been a movement to try to respond to the demands of the youth. ESG investment 2006. Sorry, responsible investment principle in 2006. That led to 4,000 trillion yen investment. I believe this represents the capital markets paradigm shift. In addition to this, more recently, there has been a completely different movement, that is impact investment. It is true that companies are reducing CO2 emission that is assessed, but it's not just that. What are the subsequent impact of such companies' action to reduce CO2? So that's impact. Simply put, it will be the subsequent effects of companies' actions being analyzed to try to understand and maximize the societal impact. But there are always two sides to companies' activities. There are positive and negative. So we both have positive and negative impact. We do not accept impact offset. You may say that we have more positive impact than negative impact, so it's okay. It is important to maximize positive impact and suppress negative impact. So our concept does not recognize trade-off. We should avoid trade-off. It's very difficult to achieve positive impact immediately. So it takes a long time. But the goal is to maximize the positive impact. So the investors will look at product and services of a company. They would also examine the management philosophy of the company and analyze to understand whether the company is ready to cause a positive impact, and then make a decision to invest. 2 or 3 years ago, this was not exactly a trend. But perhaps because of the COVID-19, there has been a complete change to the mood. In the capital market, there is a bigger paradigm shift taking place because of this change. As Ms. Onuki raised a question, that's one way to respond to the demands of the youth. How can we incorporate this into companies' activities, business activities? It's not easy, but the thoughts and concept of impact need to be connected to the value creation of companies. We really have to change the definition of value creation. Just by saying, yes, we've done the impact, that's not enough. It is important to embed the thoughts of impact into the growth logic of a company. For companies to be able to understand this is going to lead to higher corporate value and eventually social value that they can offer. This logic needs to be part of the company's operation. Yes, there are some excellent companies that are seriously working on this, and they have been able to achieve the growth. But some of the companies that have only done superficial activities may be offering greenwash. No trade-off, he said. What do you have to say to that? Trade-off should be avoided. I've never thought of that. That perspective is quite fresh. It's new to me. So you're convinced. But trade-off? Not to go straight off. So the impact investment should never go straight off. In other words, trade-off's been already there. So first thing you have to do is to understand the trade-off, understand there are positive and negative aspects. So separate them and try to grow the positive side and suppress the negative side. The trade-off is there, but we need to minimize it, lessen the level of trade-off. Is that the correct understanding? Now, on the screen to the right, we have Mr. Kondo. Mr. Kondo, I think it looks to me that he is saying that UNDP is working on impact investment. What do you have to say? Thank you very much. Early on, we had a youth collaboration dialogue with the youth. I think Professor Kanye said this before. Since they were born, they have seen multiple crises. When the person is 21st years old, they have seen the World Trade Center crushed by aircrafts. There were major disasters. The young people, like Ms. Onuki, in order to convince them, what kind of solution can we offer? It's very difficult for our generation to propose such a solution. But when you think globally, you need to take a look at businesses that are making local impact. So what we are doing is to have this investor map. Each country has a program. In each country, we have had consultation with the business circle to come up with a map. And we also established a certification program. Using both of them, we are trying to have investors understand this as an impact investment. And this has been done on a global level as well. There will be intermediary year since SDGs started. We have COVID-19. There have been cyber crimes, cyber attacks. There are many impediments, threats. But conversely, when we have threats, there are always opportunities. They are niche opportunities for us. So what we need to do is to work with stakeholders that you have never worked with. For example, high school students. How do high school students think of your business? So think about your company from a completely new perspective. That will be a keyword for us.
Well, thank you very much. Japan SDG Action Forum. There's another set of issues or agenda. In other words, what we need to work on in the future. Thank you very much for pointing that out. So I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Arima, please. Yes. It's a very interesting theme and agenda to tackle. The notion of trade-off for management of the company. It's an issue agenda that we need to overcome, and I have felt that for a long duration of time. So Ms. Onuki have said that the connection between company and also society are just being mapped together. So doing easy trade-off and having to think that the issue is settled. The existence of mankind and human being, it's not generating to lead to value creation, nor being creative. And so human have only had adverse effect, and the existence of human may be meaningless. But that is not the case. Humans are here to create new set of value in creating innovation. So that's have to be laid out quite strongly, and we need to take action towards that goal. And that's how we need to work together. And that is my conviction. And what it means is that society, environment, and economy. So there are a lot of issues we need to trade off. No, rather, it needs to be integrated. By integrating those elements, we can create new set of value. So the axes may contradict with each other. So we try to come up with the easy solution, meaning we trade off. And we deemed it settled. But overcoming that issue in the past, I was committed to the recycling business at one point in time. So when you recycle, it's of course cumbersome. Bringing it back, collecting them and deassembling them and classifying them. And then once again, you recycle. So throwing away and discarding old pieces and buying new component parts and assembling them together much easier. But that's not the solution. So how you go by that is we are going to integrate a contradictory axis, and we need to overcome them. So where this energy comes from is the sense of purpose. Why do we do this? The sense of purpose. So thinking that through and overcoming them. And if we can do so, the ESG, the integration of ESG have a significant meaning, and that is my belief. So the word synergy has been mentioned, but in a way it's a synergy, integrating them together and overcoming the problems. So we human are existing in order to do that, and that is our purpose, and we need to work together towards that goal. In other words, a purpose, the SDGs in this case. Everyone needs to realize SDGs. And if we can come to a common set of agreement, we'll be able to move and make progress towards that end. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Arima. You talked about the example recycle. So recycling is making product much expensive. It's utilize a lot of cost. And when you think about premium price, it's always a premium quality product. So maybe the recycled item is more of a premium set of value. We need to change the mindset about value. So when you recycle them, we call it upcycle, or maybe upcycle is a better word. The original value is much stronger or has much significant value. So it was only economical value, but when you embed social and environmental value, it would add on to that value. So that is more of a premium sort of a value than the original product. So that, I think, is something that we would be able to consider pursuing what Mr. Arima said. What do you think? The shift of the sense of value. Recycled goods are much more additional significance in value. So that is the fact that the consumer's mindset also needs to change. And the product that has been recycled, to effectively utilize them and create a business model like a subscription usage. So the ownership will not change, but you would pay as you go on demand. So these business models could be combined together. So there are multiple ways of how this could be rolled out. Yes, so that, I think, is the area which it excites us to be creative. And with Kohei Saito, I had an opportunity chance to talk with him. He talked about the notion is degrowth. Degrowth, it's when you achieved that by 2030, well, it's just an ideal. So converting the set of value, the consumer mindset changing. So that's more realistic, rather than convincing ourselves to degrowth. So, of course, having this discussion in itself is healthy. So trying to convince ourselves of degrowth, I think the new set of value that will be created, that talk is really linking directly to the SDGs. So, Ms. Onuki, I think you had another agenda. So can you share the second agenda? So what was your second agenda? Yes, thank you. This is a slide. The second agenda is the alliance between the stakeholders. So it has been touched upon earlier already, but the various initiative, the SDGs awareness is going up, and there are multiple stakeholders like corporate and individual to institution. Various stakeholders are engaged in this SDGs, but they have their own set of objective, and they have their own means of achieving this objective. So there's less alliance between the stakeholders from what we see it. So as I've been discussed already, of course, if you think about synergy and trade-off, leveraging and enhancing strength, maybe we could be able to compensate and help each other. So SDG would make much quicker progress if that can be done. But we don't see that alignment or alliance between the stakeholders. And I think this is an agenda because SDGs is a year or 10 years of action. Is there any sort of a progression in the 10 years of action as we see it? So effectively, we need to join our hands together to make the progress within this decade. So in between each stakeholders needs to have a platform, a level playing field for them to discuss what their real concerns are. So the various stakeholders are having this discussion. So there's no pros or cons, but each of the strength, each of the weakness, they have difference. So each differences be able to leverage on the strength. They have a platform or a level playing field where they will be able to work together. I think that those are necessary. So I think alignment between the stakeholders. So in order to make tangible progress, what's needed, I think, is a question that has been highlighted. So this, I think, from the government, the roundtable session is organized by the MOFA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I would like to ask Mr. Kawahara from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, please. Thank you. This is Kawahara speaking. I am from MOFA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the Japanese government, ministry, Prime Minister is as a head of having Prime Minister in promoting SDGs. We have multiple stakeholders. Representative from various, of course, discipline in having SDG roundtable meeting, and we, MOFA, are the host, and there are a lot of professional and eminent members who are participating in this roundtable session. The roundtable sessions was started because of the very fact to achieve alignment between the stakeholders and to proceed effectively amongst the stakeholders. So that is the intent of having this roundtable session. And well, from last year, we have some youth representative participating in this roundtable. So how, in between stakeholders, the dialogue or alliance needs to be enhanced further. Of course, this is not the government alone will be able to achieve. We need to involve private sector and schools and academia and educational field, civil society. We need to have a wide realm of discussion from multiple disciplines. But at the same time, the roundtable stakeholders, the framework could be effectively utilized. So more than this year, more wider realm of stakeholder dialogue needs to be much deepened. And we hope that we'll be able to offer opportunity to the group.
So representing government, we would like to work on this. And as I see this forum, there has been discussion on multi-stakeholder collaboration. And it's nice to have discussion taking place at many different places. Thank you. The government has set up this mechanism. This is just about to start. So I have great expectation on that. So youth participating in the round table. the youth organizations, do they work together? I have been active as one of the youth. I am connected to multiple organizations. Who's working with who? For those detailed connections, I am not sure. Since the youth representative is participating in a round table, they need to collect the opinions of different organizations representing youth. And that has been done by SDGs Japan. This commemorates the 5th anniversary. So coordination between stakeholders has been done by Ms. Miwa-san. Do you have any suggestions or ideas, or perhaps some of the challenges and difficulties you have experienced? Can you share with us? Thank you very much. As Mr. Kawahara introduced, this coming next fiscal year, there will be a new framework starting, and I'm looking forward to what comes out of this. Wide range of stakeholders should be able to participate. SDGs, no one's left behind. This concept needs to be embodied in that roundtable. As a result, we'd like to see various policies, supported policies. Before I talk about SDGs, Professor Kanye, can I talk about the company's activities? I wasn't able to raise my hand. Sorry, I didn't notice. Perhaps you were trying to raise your hand. No, I did not raise my hand. I couldn't. Anyway, Ms. Onuki said early on that she talked about the youth perspective of the contributing companies. What I like to see is SDGs contribution by private companies should be assessed and evaluated from the youth perspective. And they could say that we would never want to deal with this company. No way. Or you could even say we would never be able to work for a company like this. Well, in that case, there will be the impact investment assessment, zero waste, recycling, carbon neutrality, business and human rights principles. Japan has the action plan in this area. How much companies executing that principle, supply chain, value chain, throughout these chains, human rights compliance, gender equality included in the compliance issue. In addition to that, care economy perspective, child raising leave, nursing care leave. The equal opportunity manager the other day said that in public servants, 50% of the male public servants who just had the new baby born in a family take the child-rearing leaves. And I asked this person, how long would they take? Half of them will take a week up to a month. Just a month. Will they have sufficient time to participate in child rearing? And nursing care leave, the same goes for nursing care. The divorce rate between men and women, if you look at the difference, especially the male who have never married over age 50, the ratio of having never married is higher in men, but they are also asked to take care of their parents, meaning they may have to take the leave to provide nursing care to their parents. meaning this will be a loss to our company, loss to this person as well. So for the youth, I'd like to have them evaluate and assess different companies. That will be my comment on the first topic. Ms. Onuki had a big smile on her face. Would you like to say something? We have been already doing that. We students are looking at companies that contribute to SDGs. We have had discussion. We set up evaluation standard, integration report, sustainability reports, web page. We have analyzed all of these, and we came up with a ranking of companies. As a matter of fact, Ms. Onuki's thesis was on that topic, and she actually received the award writing that paper. As Ms. Miwa said, some of these perspectives are still missing. So that's where we need to make corrections. So we've set up a project in our university to analyze that information, and possibly eventually we would like to disclose the result of the analysis, especially the audience who's watching this, especially the young people. If you want to participate, we're open. We are open to any collaboration, to your participation. So please contact us. Thank you for letting me that you have had this project. Make it open and enrich and expand the database that you have, so that eventually companies would say that we need to have high ranking in that table. So for them to be able to continue their business, they will be looking at different issues. Nikkei SDG ranking and their project ranking, there was only one company that actually came up on top of both of those tables. Majority of these Nikkei's selection did not appear in the top ranking of our list. Sorry, so the second point was stakeholders collaboration. So inter-stakeholder collaboration is critical. There's no controversy about that. Environment and economy need to be integrated. As I said this morning, we need to add that, add a piece to that. So we need to have a bigger stakeholder collaboration. And what is needed, as I said this morning, is the systems change. We have to share the sense of crisis and urgency of changing the system. Unless otherwise, there is no understanding of the need of partnership. It's not just a change, it's the transformation that we need. We have to have this shared sense of urgency, crisis, gender equality, human rights respect. All of these must be the fundamental concept for us to be able to be more inclusive, to build rich future society. Without it, partnership is just the self-proclaimed project that they want to simply take advantage of the strengths. So that is a concern. So as I said, the foundation must be built on that philosophy. As I said, the next generation, the youth perspective of SDG need to be also integrated. This is different from degrowth. I would like to redefine the richness. This is a different concept of the growth concept, the growth. That will be the future image that we can share. And based on that, we will be able to build a new type of partnership.
So trade-off, this is a very grave issue. So when it's not easy to achieve. So last year, from the COP26, there is a strong statement. And one of the statements that strongly have been held is the alternative meat. So alternative meat in the past is for the vegetarians. It's a selection by the vegetarians. But from the climate change, people are talking about alternative meat. At first, it did not ring a bell about the relationship between climate change and alternative meat, because the methane gas emission, the burp of the cows have a strong influence on the CO2 emission. I still does not really ring a bell, but already there is a scientific evidence to that. So my workplace is in Osaka, and on the other side of the main road, a very famous hamburger shop has a shop, and it's called COVID-19. About 30 people are on a long queue waiting for the restaurant to open. So hamburger, of course, it does smell so nice and so delicious, savory. And of course, I don't want to give up on this great food stuff. But when you think about climate change, we need to maybe convert to alternative meat. So the livestock industries and food industry have to make a major transformation on their business. And what's important is the rural area in Germany. There are some lessons being learned, accumulated. And if I have time, I would like to talk about that notion. But those experiences of how you can change positively the trade-off, overcome the trade-off, the changes, and justifiable, of course, action needs to be considered. Thank you very much. I think it's a very important perspective of doing just and how you be able to make transformation. And you need to think about how that could be achieved. Otherwise, there's a lot of disparities. So the easy story is, let's say, teleworking from home, remote working from home. Working from on home, and you can work from home and online is very easy. But those people who do not have access to internet, what will happen to them? So that's easy, of course, story. So that needs to be fair and just. So we need effort from the government or the policy making, of course, attitude. So in terms of how this could be achieved, well, one of the theme of the channel 2 was in a local level. When actions are being taken, there's no transformation that would happen. And this second issue, as Oniki-san said, the stakeholder alignment needs to be done on a local level as well. And this action forum, from Kanagawa Prefecture, we have Director Mr. Yamaguchi, who is functioning as secretariat for this forum in a local level. Of course, conducting these forums is so important under the initiative of the local government. And now we are seeing and discerning the next, of course, challenge and agenda we need to tackle. But the next action, from that perspective as well, on a local level, how things could be done, or what are some of the actions that you like to further encourage? I would like to hear those stories from you. So Yamaguchi-san, please. Thank you very much. Well, in terms of the initiative of the SDGs by local government expanding ever so strongly, but as you can see, some of the issues agenda that confronting the private sector, it's quite similar in a way for the local government. So synergy trade-off, it's very much not well embraced yet. At the same time, so what we are doing, so with the labeling level, we are trying to achieve that. But in terms of the business integration, where that's being done effectively, it's we're still far from reaching that goal. In Kanagawa Prefecture, yes, we had those issues. One of the example is that we had an activity called food drive. So people talked about food losses. So it's a circulation of the environment circulation. At the same time, there was a children hunger issue, which was dealt by a different department. So from the SDGs perspective, both need to be integrated together to be handled by the same department. So not only prefecture, but not the local government, but the city, but the prefecture and also the region are now taking a step forward in integrating this effort. So in terms of an administrative, of course, policy, well, Professor Kanye said about the silos. So when talk about silos, it seems as though the government are very much typical of silo, I must say. But for worse or for better, the administrative, of course, differences, there are boundaries. So overcoming those silos requires a lot of effort. So SDGs, in a word, it's easy in a way to convince everyone that there are three major areas which we need to integrate together. So each one of us have to be connected. So the social issue that we confront is something that an administrative office of ours would be able to solve alone. So you talked about upholding aspirations. We need to share same set of goal to try to work that. So it's a way of collaborating, although it may be remote, to achieve this. So gradually we are starting on this work. And we hope that this could be rolled out more effectively and more scale this out. So climate change issue and also ocean plastic issue, very broad social issues. We would like to work in helping each other. So it really is alignment between the stakeholders in this case. So each of the companies or each of the academia and the civil society, and we want to work as a knot or connection point. And that, I think, is a role of the local government and the administrative office. So it's a challenge that we would like to make. So thank you very much. You talked about the knots or the touch point, and that is the local government itself. So looking at the situation of the local government, of course, it's easy to say about how to do. I understand that, but in terms of the welfare and environment, different division, but nexus is not easy to achieve. The knot or nexus. So, what are the clues in achieving that? Well, it's SDGs. Nobody's going to be left behind. It really is the high aspirational sort of a mission. It overcomes everything. It's really a top-down decision that will be made. So as I mentioned this morning, the governor would say that we're going to do this. Rather than I shouting out that this is important, the governor taking the lead and spearheading the thought have a quite influential effect on everyone. So, of course, it's a top-down. The company, the C-level officers, is going to really spearhead this effort and will be a chaperone for these activities. And by utilizing that, what was unable to do in the past, we'll be able to overcome them. So that's, I think, is one thing that is enabling us. So the will of the leaders and also the intent. So when I was conducting research on the private sector, I have had the chance to talk with some of the SDG, ESG members, and I remember similar thing has been said. SDGs, I know there are companies that are doing so much and working so hard on SDGs. And I asked why you could do so. Because it's a short run, it does not bring you any profit. So why is it so that you're working so hard on the SDGs? Well, the top executive has said that you don't have to work for the profit generation, but work for the sake of the community. And then the society have caught up, and ultimately we are seeing an increase in the sales and business. And that is the reason why it's a viable business. So top down, it seems as though one direction of communication may not be good, but the leaders, what the leaders are aiming for, I think is a very important aspect.
I see. So does anybody, for example, Mr. Arima, you have been saying a similar thing. Top management must change. Top leader has to take actions. But without top management involved, some people, the rank and file people working so hard on SDGs, there are cases like that. In relation to that, we've conducted a survey. It comes to my mind that we have had data on it. To promote SDGs, there have been barriers. What are the barriers? We asked the question to the companies. In the past, they said the lack of the understanding of the top management. But this year, this problem was answered by less than 10%. So top management understanding is no longer a problem. So there has been a change. So that means, what are the problems now? In other words, top management who does not support SDGs no longer qualify. Well, of course, it depends on the company. According to the Global Compact survey, of course, we target companies that are highly aware of the SDGs need, but there have been a major change. We asked the companies whether they understood SDGs in 2016. Only 24–25% of the top management understood the SDGs. But last year, this ratio went up to 92%. There has been a dramatic improvement. This is a hopeful sign, isn't it? On the other hand, how about the government administration, Mr. Kawahara? Yes, Kawahara speaking once again. Within Kasumigaseki, in the Japanese government, relevant government organizations and ministries are working together. There are 17 goals. There are goals where actions are slow to take place, especially at the time of COVID-19. We don't have much time left. There are areas of slow actions. Of course, the government is committed to work hard. On the other hand, there are things that government alone would not be able to succeed. So that's the area where we need to collaborate with multiple sectors, especially private sector. If I look at it, depending on the ministry, there are different degrees of supporting SDGs. Some ministries are subdued. In order for us to drive them to taking more actions, what can stakeholders do? As Mr. Yamaguchi said, because stakeholders are the key. What can we do to mobilize them? Sorry for asking such a very difficult question. Thank you for your question. Prime Minister is leading the promotion headquarters, where all the ministries participate in promotion committee. All the ministers are there as well. If you look at the proceedings of the council's meeting, each minister express the commitment to work hard on SDGs. Yes, there are different degrees of willingness to work on this, but the common thread is that they have the attitude of making commitment, willing to work hard. Amongst multi-stakeholders discussion, including this Action Forum, we believe it is important to hear what local governments need to say. Thank you. In a forum like this, we have to have politicians making commitments. I see Mr. Kondo raising your hand. The screen is yours. Thank you. In the beginning, when there was the explanation of GSTR, Professor Kanye said this is the assessment of assessments. Now, what we need to assess at this point, there are several things that we need to assess. As we develop SDGs, there are risk sides. During this pandemic, we were pressured to respond to this pandemic. As Professor Garnier said, we came to realize that our current society is not sustainable. Each company or a government office or the community member, each stakeholders and organizations we need to assess all of these constituents because this is a risk that can be repeated. There may be another wave of pandemic, perhaps bigger than this COVID-19, because humans move more widely and we have conflicts. The commodity prices fluctuate. How could the economy or society respond? That is really the immediate problem that we are faced with. How have we taken actions? Schools went online. During this time, what did children feel? What happened to the quality of education? All of these questions need to be answered through the impact assessment. And I think that assessment is demanded. And that will be the first step to fortify stakeholders' collaboration. Companies recently set up their purpose for their business management. They often cite SDGs, how it is important to firmly position the company within the society. As Prime Minister Kishida said, the companies need to have more opportunities to have roundtable discussions. Because this is going to spread over the Japanese border to other countries as well. Having review is important. We've been talking about GSTR, but within Japan, there is the SDG white paper. I have issued 2 white papers so far. Conventionally, we had experts writing and summarizing reports. But going forward, we need to focus on the review. For example, this pandemic, what are the impacts? What are the impacts from the perspective of SDGs or sustainability? We would like to make a forum where we can actually examine this from these perspectives. Japan SDG Action Promotion Council the organizer of this forum, is one of the authors of SDG white paper, including the whole community, including the audience. We have seen the expansion. So we have to have all-inclusive review. When we were discussing early on, Mr. Yamaguchi, who is here in this panel, said that this is not GSDR. We have to rename it to JSDR, Japan Sustainable Development Report. We need to rename it to JSDR. Taking this forum today as an opportunity to make a positive shift, I would like to evolve this white paper we have been issuing as well. That's what I'd like to do going forward.
We only have 5 more minutes. So, Mr. Kawate, I'm sorry, I have not asked you to speak up so often enough. So thank you very much. Now things have become quite clear in my mind through this discussion. So in terms of the promotion council, all the ministers are participating in considering about way forward. And 90% of the management are already aware of the importance of SDGs. But still, the changes are gradually maybe occurring, but not to the level of transformation. So what's important is today's discussion, GSDR. On a global basis, this is the report that is being talked about, the input side. So a high-quality input will lead to a high-quality governance at the end of the day. So to the ministers, who would offer a high-quality input? I think it is the parliament. It's a diet on a national level. It's a prefectural parliament on the prefectural level. So that need to be discussed, and SDG needs to be talked about on these occasions to lead to a good input. So everything is trying to lead to SDGs, and synergy and trade-off are being talked about in order to talk about the true essence of SDG. And this is not a special forum like this forum today. I think it's a natural topic that needs to be discussed in the prefectural parliament and in the diet as well. So the essential importance of SDGs, high-quality input, will lead to a high governance. To the C-level officers and the management of the company is the same. For the local government, of course, parliament, it's important to have a high-quality input. So high-quality input is starting from GSDR, the global top researchers and expert. The research result will be fed in to the minds of these people. So it leads to a good transformation. We talked about the notion of nexus, and the nexus, so what is this nexus that we're talking about? So this action forum today, the organizers, Japan Action Promotion Council, from the government to the youth, with various sectors, we have the common set of sort of framework where we'll be able to discuss on par. We are sort of on the same boat, so to speak of, in discussing this matter altogether. So it's a comprehensive, holistic view that we do have. So Japan SDGs Action Promotion Council is not something special, but the Japanese SDGs in the system to promote that, this is one of the systems in promoting that. So there are roundtable conference, and as from MOFA, the director Kawahara mentioned that there are new activities that's going to be undertaken next year and following year. So each has a role to play. Otherwise, which input is a high-quality input? We are ending up with those discussions. But these, of course, comprehensive scheme and system in everyone are working together toward the same goal. It's not a rivalry. It's not really who's over who, but it's alliance of everyone in order to have this high-quality input to be provided to the leaders. And the society itself will be looking from the eyes of SDGs, and that opportunity is so significant. And today, from the government to the civil society to the youth, we are able to share this notion. It's not just one people speaking on their own sort of a silo. This is the nexus. So from the government to the youth, each of the, of course, perspective should be placed with significant importance. Yes, thank you. And also one other thing, this could not be achieved overnight, but don't be close in Japan. We need to roll this out and evolve this to the rest of the world. First of all, starting off from Asia. And we need to really expand this to a wider region and audience. And GSDR, which was the theme for today, well, in fact, when this was established, it's like an IPCC panel. I thought it would be best if we can place in a formation of IPCC panel. And I've been talking that with my colleagues. So when SDG was established with these people together, we are working together in writing this report. But 15 individual group of scientists is too small a group. IPCC is quite wide in scope. The number of writers are totally different. It's not just having enough number of people to write the report, but in the future, well, this time, we have the TOR, so we have to go ahead with the scheme that we have today. But 2030 and beyond, we need to expand the realm. So maybe if each government of each country representative are involved, then each country would have this kind of a forum and there will be multiple inputs. Then it's, I think the transformation speed would really accelerate. So last time in 2019, there was no one from Japan to be the writer. So it was something that's happening on the other side of the ocean. But that is not good. So I hope that we would like to make proposal and advocate this importance. And Kawahara-san would like to discuss with you as MOFA. We would like to escalate this to the United Nations. I'm sorry, Kanai-san, you have been raising your hand, please. So look, listening to what Mr. Kawata mentioned, it was quite convincing because creating a system within the organization, otherwise this will not carry across. So alliance, one of the things that I felt a little uncomfortable is MPO and also company decided to work together. And the sustainability department of the company decided to talk with them. And that's not alliance. So it's a specific action that's needed within the organization. Not just talking is enough. Just hearing is not enough. The top executive said, yes, I know, I understand. But that's not enough. But the department involved may be aligned with the top executive. That does not make the company take action. So a system in the company, in organization, have to be established. Otherwise, it's impossible. And I think it's only a handful, very few companies having those systems. So we have very important information. But maybe once every 6 months, we go to the president to report the situation. Nothing will change in that case. So by coincidence, in our company, we have a management system, and with MPO and investors, we have this discussion together. And we have the internal engagement section, and we have an engagement to the relevant department. So engagement from outside, the organization tends to establish a barrier or hesitate. So the department with the external engagement will work for internal engagement. And the effect of that, what's been said by the stakeholder, at that time, we go through the brainstorming and we nominate someone and we escalate to the managers who is in charge of that department. And the happy DCA, the deliverables, we are going to submit that to the board of directors meeting. So the diet or prefectural parliament is the board of directors meeting or general shareholders meeting. But if the board of directors meeting is the actual control tower of the company, the stakeholders' voice as an organization, if it is being reflected as a company, that needs to be checked. Otherwise, it's not a true alignment. So establishing this system is a truly vital point. So it's a very important point Thank you very much. That has been mentioned. Can I just add to what Kanai-san has said? I completely resonate with Kanai-san. So in terms of gender equality, trying to pursue that in the company, so we ask women employees to have a roundtable to submit all the problem in the company. That's so effective. It's just a talking session. So, but the talking session should not end as a talking session. It needs to be institutionalized. And institutionalization means who's it's going to be escalated to, and whoever received the escalation, who that person will escalate to the other. So, of course, the Kanai-san said, the best, of course, place to escalate to the board of directors meeting. So for the transformation, we need institutionalization. Yes, that's so important in the company. I'm sorry time is running, but I just wanted to add this to conclude the meeting.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Onuki, you can take it back and include that into the evaluation criteria. Sorry, it would have been nice to be able to continue on, but thank you very much for sharing precious opinions with us. Officially, we need to conclude this session. So let me try to summarize the discussion here. This is not the end. The forum is the beginning. There have been many ideas shared. GSDR will be able to consider these ideas, but some of the challenges that forum can take on and start translating them into specific actions. So we would like to begin. We would like to institutionalize some of those ideas that are shared today. So Ms. Sakurada, I will give the microphone back to you. And Ms. Mitsumi, in each channel, you have seen a great discussion. Share with us what you thought of different channels. Excuse me. This is really the multi-stakeholder forum. We've had rich discussion. Now, Mitsumi-san, you have been the MC for Channel 2. We focused on act locally. We focused on locals. Beautification of Wakasa Bay, Fukuiken, and safe baby food, Lee Green in Mie Prefecture, food bank in Kanagawa, and 1 out of 3 children is in poverty. Okinawa Children Mirai Launch Support. There are many experiences shared. As I listened to this conclusive session, the primary industry that have direct impact on our livelihoods, they are the direct actors. Unless they feel the change, we should never say that we have achieved the impact. For richer future, I am good at communicating what I have learned. There are different strengths of different individuals. There are also weaknesses, so that's why we need to work together to support each other. I would love to see what's been discussed in Channel 2. Please watch us in archive. Channel 1's wonderful as well. The youth have done a great job. SDGs communication has progressed toward the next step. At this point, we are making a very shift to the next stage. So please go back to our archive. You will be able to watch the video. There will be a link posted on this homepage. Please recommend others to watch the archived video. So, Chairman Kanye, would you like to give us a closing comment of the forum? We are running short of time, so I'll be very brief. Throughout this forum, we discussed GSDR. We've had a lot of discussion on this report, and we've been able to identify many factors. We see the need to add more factors. For the very first time, the current GSDR has been shared. So please introduce our archive. It's not for just Japan. We have simultaneous translation available for non-Japanese audience as well. There's only one country out of 193 members of the United Nations that has focused on GSTR. We understand action is important, but it's only an individual action out of the whole global population. But if we add to that together, we'll be able to poke a hole and make a change. You can use SNS, social messaging. There may be the explosive change. That's what we want to discover through GSTR. Again, this is the beginning of our future actions. Use this forum as a beginning. It's not just GSTR, it's not the end. We need to expand the scope of our actions. Let's do that together. With that, let me share with you my wish to cooperate with all of you. Thank you very much for watching our forum for many hours. I want to also thank all the participants. Some of you have been here from early morning up to this moment, and there are staff members who have helped, and two MCs. Thank you for helping us organize this wonderful event, and also Kanagawa Prefecture teams, including Mr. Yamaguchi. They have given us a great help. Thank you very much. So let's continue on with our actions. Thank you very much for your participation today.